Good morning and welcome. Whether you're joining us from near or far, welcome. Whether you're joining us for your very first time or your 101st time, welcome. We're so very glad that you're with us today. Today we will hear from the Reverend Marcus Fogliano. Reverend Marcus Fogliano is a member of this congregation who's away studying at Meadville Lombard Theological School in Chicago. They serve at the Unitarian Universalist Association as the project manager for the Commission on Institutional Change. The commission was given a charge by the UUA Board of Trustees to conduct an audit of white privilege and the structure of power within Unitarian Universalism, and to analyze structural racism and white supremacy culture within the UUA. The final report, Widening the Circle of Concern, is now available at uua.org/COIC-report.
Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in one strong body, gathered here in the struggle and the power, spirits draw near. Gathered here in the mystery of the hour, gathered here in the mysteries of the body, scattered here in the mysteries of the hour, gathered here in the mysteries of the body, scattered here in the struggles and the body, scattered here in the struggle of the power, scattered here in the mysteries of the hour, gathered here in the mysteries of the body, scattered here in the struggles and the body, scattered here in the struggle of the power, spirit draw near.
Good morning. Today we're talking about covenants. A covenant is the promises we make about how to treat each other within the groups that we choose to be a part of. In our Peoria UU children's community, the children created their own covenant, and we revisit it every year in our community, in our children's circle, in our RA classrooms, and this year, online. We constantly change and improve our covenant as we move forward together toward beloved community. It's a living document based on love, respect, and connection. Since we're talking about covenants, I'd like to share it with you today. This is our Peoria RE Kids Covenant, created by our kids. Keep healthy in body and mind. Treat others' bodies and belongings with respect. Be polite and helpful. Play and work together with everyone nicely. Respect everyone. Be kind and accepting. Be open-minded. Listen quietly and carefully to others. Forgive when your heart is able. Offer caring and help when others are sad. Live peacefully. Stand up for others. Cooperate with others in order to make life better. Treat others as you want to be treated. And have fun together. I'm quite proud of this covenant created by our UU kids. I think it's full of some pretty wonderful ideas for a community of any kind. As we move forward, I ask that we all, people of all ages in our church community, help to model out in the world the behavior that our church's children have promised to show to each other. Because, as always, we are in this together. So be it.
My name is CHAR, RICKEY, and I'm with you today as a representative from our caring committee to share the joys and sorrows of our friends and members with you. We send healing wishes to Leela McCrae, who is recovering at home following a hospital stay. And we also send healing wishes to Mary Rowan, who is home recovering first from a surgery and then a fall following surgery. We're hoping for a complete, speedy recovery for both Leela and Mary. Please hold these thoughts in your hearts during the week ahead, remembering our community is filled with both joys and sorrows, the joys made brighter and the sorrows made lighter by sharing them. If you have a joy or a sorrow you would like to share with us, please send a note to caring@peoriauuchurch.org, call me at the number in the directory, or join us on Zoom Wednesday nights at 7. Take care.
Today's spoken meditation, The Task of Religious Community, was written by the Reverend Dr. Mark Morrison Reed. The central task of the religious community is to unveil the bonds that bind each to the other. There is a connectedness, a relationship discovered amid the particulars of our own lives and the lives of others. Once felt, it inspires us to act for justice. It is the church that assures us that we are not struggling for justice on our own, but as members of a larger community. The religious community is essential, for alone our vision is too narrow to see all that must be seen, and our strength is limited to do all that must be done. Together our vision widens and our strength is renewed.
Responsive offertory reading.
We Need One Another by George E. Odell.
We need one another when we mourn and would be comforted.
We need one another when we are in trouble and afraid.
We need one another when we are in despair, in temptation, and need to be recalled to be our best selves again.
We need one another when we would accomplish some great purpose and cannot do it alone.
We need one another in our hour of success, when we look for someone to share our triumphs.
We need one another in the hour of defeat, when with encouragement we might endure and stand again.
We need one another when we come to die, and would have gentle hands prepare us for the journey.
All our lives we are in need, and others are in need of us.
We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. We are working to be free from hate and greed and jealousy. We are working to be free. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. Start with love, that is the seed. We can feed our every need. Peace and justice is our cry. Peace and justice is our cry. Peace and justice is our cry. Without these, this world will die. Peace and justice is our cry. We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way.
And now I'd like to share with you the Universalist Unitarian Church of Peoria Congregational Covenant. As a community of love and hope, we covenant together to welcome with open minds and open hearts all who gather here, newcomers, members, and friends, to nurture one another with caring words, kind actions, and compassionate concern, to share ideas freely, listen willingly, disagree respectfully, and forgive easily, to inspire one another, youngest to eldest, to thrive in body, mind, and spirit, to work cooperatively towards our goals and openly appreciate each other's unique gifts, to enrich our congregational life by participating, leading, pledging, and giving, to celebrate life and savor its diversity, beauty, and creativity.
Good morning, Universalist Unitarian Church of Peoria. I am so thrilled to be with you all this morning in this virtual space to share with you some of my reflections over the last couple of years. I ask that you bear with me as my home here in Chicago is close to a hospital. Thus, this recording has been edited together to avoid any background noise. I bring love and greetings from my colleagues at the Unitarian Universalist Association, and I return the love and well wishes from the First Unitarian Church of Rochester, New York, and the First Unitarian Society of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, who hosted me as a guest preacher earlier this year. Last year, the Board of Trustees of this church voted to sponsor my journey towards fellowship as a UU minister. I agreed to come back once or twice a year as a guest preacher and share with you all my reflections of that journey. My first year of seminary at Meadville Lombard Theological School cannot be detached from the ministry I have been engaged in, serving as the project manager for the Commission on Institutional Change at the Unitarian Universalist Association. While the community studies component of Meadville Lombard looks at how to analyze systems and on the different types of oppressions within systems, my role in serving the commission puts these theoretical studies into action, analyzing how these systems of oppression manifest within our Unitarian Universalist institutions. As a seminarian, there is a necessity to pull back and reflect not only on how you govern yourself, but also why you govern yourself in that way. I must admit, it's tough. As conflict rises within Unitarian Universalism and within the broader world, dissecting yourself, your values, and your purpose, dissecting myself and my values and my purpose in front of others is hard. Doing so with religious trauma from a previous faith tradition can make it even harder. I failed my first community studies course because I was not fortified, and I went into it on my own. Now, I'm sure at this point you may be wondering, what does my failure in my first semester of seminary have to do with the theme of this sermon, the new covenant, redefining Unitarian Universalist polity for the 21st century? Well, we find ourselves in a particularly tumultuous time, and we have been for quite some time now. The question I'm leaving my first year at Meadville Lombard and my service with the Commission on Institutional Change with is twofold. How are we, as Unitarian Universalists, fortifying our UU institutions to make it through this time? And how do we make it through together? To analyze our UU institutions in this way also requires a willingness to pull back and reflect on not only how we govern ourselves, but also why we govern ourselves in that way. If we were in person, I'd make a joke, sit back, relax, and let's talk about bylaws. But I'd rather you not shut off your screens. While some of you, like me, may totally geek out about bylaws and policies, I wish to take us a little bit deeper than that, to the theological framing that itself impacts how we structure our institutions through bylaws and policies. You see, I'm a polity nerd, and I'm here to discuss polity. That is the way our faith communities are governed. The historical document the Unitarian Universalist Association draws its polity from, the Cambridge Platform of 1648, defines polity as ecclesiastical polity, or church government, or discipline, is nothing else but that form and order that is to be observed in the Church of Christ upon earth, both for the constitution of it and all the administration that therein are to be performed. In a way, it feels like I'm quoting bylaws. It's an old mix of legalese, theology, and 17th century English, which I suspect is why this document is more often referred to than actually read. In a sense, the platform is treated like the Constitution. For example, I might claim mass mandates infringe on my constitutional rights, but I can't show you in the Constitution where I get that notion. So let's look at some of the stories we Unitarian Universalists tell ourselves about what we claim as our congregational polity, and how some of these stories are contradictions to the congregational polity defined within the Cambridge platform. I offer these 3 reflections: that congregational polity is misrepresented, inadequate for a shifting society, and in practice, not the polity of modern-day Unitarian Universalism at all. To begin, let's dive into what I mean by misrepresentation of congregational polity. I'd like to start with a question to you. I'd love for folks to share their thoughts in the comment section, with the understanding that we are a living tradition on a journey towards spiritual growth and learning together, so don't be shy. The question that I pose to you: when you hear the term congregational polity or congregationalist, what does it mean to you? Feel free to type into the comment section. Again, that question is, when you hear the terms congregational polity or congregationalist, what does that mean to you? I want to thank you for sharing, and I invite you to continue sharing. It is important that we engage these conversations in an open manner because they are inherent to our identity as Unitarian Universalists. So here's how a lesson from the Tapestry of Faith, a curriculum on UU identity and faith formation, which is available on the UUA website, defines congregational polity. It is the rights and responsibilities of each properly organized congregation to make its own decisions about its own affairs without recourse of any higher human authority. And in this sense, congregational polity is a drastic shift from the episcopal polity, which is the church governance model based on the authority of a bishop. The Cambridge platform outlines the biblical foundation of congregational polity, which spells this shift out as a challenge to the Bishop of England's authority. One might say the Cambridge platform of 1648 was both the New England Church's Declaration of Independence and Constitution. As with the other 2 polities, episcopal, derived from the dictates of Paul to the early Christians, and Presbyterian, seen in the bodies of elders at the congregations to which Paul wrote, the Cambridge platform used biblical grounding to take the authority away from the bishop and place it in the hands of the congregations. If the Cambridge platform is the New England Church's Declaration of Independence, then the notion that congregations are responsible to only themselves is the state's rights of Unitarian Universalism. However, the Cambridge platform was never a document defining how we are not in relationship with one another. It is grounded in how the Holy Spirit moves within the congregation, like at Acts chapter 2 on the day of Pentecost, and how congregations are connected and interact in the image of and in communion with Christ Jesus. defined as the new covenant in Luke 22, verse 20. In my understanding, the congregants, like the bishop, were never viewed as the source of authority, but the tools through which the will of God was done. I would say that these are not broad present-day Unitarian Universalist concepts. As a living tradition, I don't believe we have lost the principles of Congregationalism. However, I fear not adequately naming where the power and authority that moves through the congregation comes from has left room for narratives of personal interests before community and of ultra-autonomous congregations, which have misrepresented what it means to be Congregationalists, hindering our capacity as congregations to move together and grow. I believe the hindrance of hyper self-interest and isolation in itself, almost identical to the resistance we see to mask mandates, speaks to the inadequacy of such narratives about our congregational polity for this time. The first time I preached on this subject in Rochester, New York, I spoke of an era where technology has the potential to bring us together in new ways, but seems to be pushing us apart. It is surreal to be living into that potential now. We need to understand how Congregationalism calls us to be there for each other and to adapt this understanding to communities that gather beyond the confines of the church walls. I myself have been participating in 2 spiritual communities here in Chicago that take place in bars. One centers praise music and the other centers storytelling. As we grapple with a global climate crisis, global pandemics, both viral and that of racism, these require collective action beyond the church walls that is inclusive of new, innovative communities. Congregational polity was written down in the 17th century, and it did not have concepts of faith communities that meet online from anywhere in the world, or that meet in the coffee shop just down the street. These are all challenges and questions our Association of UU congregations are engaged in, and is often held back by misinterpretations of an outdated document. The Reverend Dr. Susan Frederick Gray, president of the UUA, speaks of the Unitarian Universalist Association in this way. The UUA is the embodiment of the covenant our member congregations make to one another. Again, I invite you to participate. Please share a brief thought about what covenant means to you in the comment section. Again, what does covenant mean to you? This dialogue is a significant part of covenant, that these sacred living promises we make to one another are shaped by our collaborative discernment. So please feel free to continue to share what covenant means to you. In the 2013 summer issue of the UU World, Victoria E. Safford described covenant in this way. A covenant is a living, breathing aspiration made new every day. It cannot be enforced by consequences, but it may be reinforced by forgiveness and by grace. When we stumble, when we forget, when we mess up. In Hebrews chapter 8, Jesus is named again as the new covenant, through which sin is erased and through which a new sacred promise between God and the people of God is made. I think it is noteworthy that even God's first covenant in this chapter is named as aspirational. It was not perfect and needed to be revised to be more whole. Just as in the Torah, God renegotiates God's covenant with God's people on multiple occasions. I see in the scriptures Victoria's description of covenant over and over again, the sacred promises between nations, people, and even things larger than ourselves. And it makes me wonder, is covenant itself the new covenant? The aspirations and moments of grace our Congregationalist forebears saw as reflections of Jesus in their communal relationships. In 1894, was Reverend James Vale Blake right to say, "Love is the spirit of this church," thereby naming love itself as the spirit that moves within Unitarian Universalists to keep us showing up for one another and on the side of love? I believe the answer is emphatically yes. After over 370 years of the Cambridge platform, it may be time to acknowledge that the power and authority is not held within congregants themselves, but in the promises we make to one another. It is surely time to acknowledge that the intercongregational relationships has expanded beyond the relationships between the small collections of churches in New England. The UUA is the embodiment of the covenant our member congregations have made to one another. When we show up for our regional and general assemblies, when we volunteer for roles that serve our broader faith, and when we meet our financial commitments to our fellow covenanted communities, we are fortifying our institutions to make it through these difficult times so they can be there for us. You and I, as the UUA, should be living, breathing aspirations made new by the continued engagement and fulfillment of the sacred promises our congregations freely make to be in relationship with one another. A new covenantal polity is called for that emphasizes the authority of our sacred promises and expands the table to welcome new covenanting communities that operate outside the congregational setting. With a covenantal polity reflective of our actual governance and de-emphasis of the misrepresentation of states' rights congregational polity, there is potential for our congregations to meet our promises to one another and for our faith to continue to grow. So we can show up for justice, for our climate, and for each other. Let us continue to equip our fellow congregations for justice seeking, developing future leaders in love, and amplifying our UU values in the world by leaning into and being stewards of our covenant. So may it be.
We would be one as now we join in singing our hymn of love to pledge ourselves anew to that high cause of greater understanding of who we are and what in us is true. We would be one in living for each other we would be one in searching for that meaning which binds our hearts and points us on our way. As one we pledge ourselves to greater service, with love and justice strive to make us free.
As we've come to the end of our service, we extinguish our chalice, a practice shared amongst our Unitarian Universalist siblings around the world. This light, this beacon of justice and hope, we carry forth with us into the world as we do the work of this church. The service has ended. Let the service begin.